Hey guys, what's up? It's Jimmy, and after getting a lot of requests for it, I'm bringing you my list of my top 10 favorite Pokemon. The Pokemon series, as I'm sure many of you know, is one of my favorites. The creatures in the game are a huge part of why I enjoy it. There have been many Pokemon introduced over the years, and there's almost 700 now, and it's crazy to think that we only started with 151. I already did my list of the Pokemon I'm not entirely fond of, and today I'm bringing you the opposite. It was very tough to narrow down all the ones I like to a list of just 10, and they may not be the best, but they are my favorites. So, let's begin. There have been many normal flying type Pokemon over the years. They're usually available early on in the game, and more often than not, players catch them and use them on their team. I've used Pokemon like Pidgey, Noctowl, and Spearow before, but I think my personal favorite of them all is Staraptor. Its design is really cool. It has a hair flip covering its face that adds to its badassery, and it looks like it's ready for a fight. Not only is it cool looking, it's also great in battle. Staraptor usually has the ability Intimidate, which is very useful for weakening your opponent's attack stat when you send it into battle. It can also learn Close Combat, which those other normal birds cannot. It's pretty dang fast and has a powerful attack stat, as well as making it a good Pokemon to put on your team. Unfortunately, most of the Pokemon that you catch early on in the game won't really last farther than the 3rd gym. However, those of you who have used Staraptor like myself know just how good of a Pokemon it is. Look at this Pokemon. Now tell me, how much do you want to use it as a pillow? Whimsicott is one of those Pokemon that people just don't seem to give enough credit. Not only is Whimsicott extremely adorable, with its ability Prankster and its many status-afflicting moves, you can set up a great moveset that can really piss off your opponent. Prankster lets you go first if you're using a non-attacking move. So, start off with something like Stun Spore to lower their speed and possibly make them paralyzed for the turn. Then you could set up something like Leech Seed to continually gain health, or pop in a substitute to take the hit for you. Then use something that takes advantage of Whimsicott's stronger special stat, like Giga Drain, to keep walling your opponent with its powerful defenses. Rinse and repeat, and you've got an annoying Pokemon that is so much fun to use. I used one on my team in Pokemon Black too, and I was very happy with the results it brought me. Holy crap, this Pokemon is awesome. Breloom is a grass fighting type Pokemon, and that's a really interesting combination. Up until Virizion, it was the only Pokemon with this combination. As its Ruby Pokédex entry states, Breloom closes in on its foe with light and sprightly footwork, then throws punches with its stretchy arms. It puts boxers to shame. Hear that, little Mac? Breloom is coming for you. I think Breloom is a pretty great Pokemon, not only in terms of how usable it is, it's also pretty creative in its design. It's a mushroom, so it can use the standard grass-type moves that cause status afflictions, but it also has a wide range of great physical fighting type attacks that it can use as well. Give that thing Poison Heal and a Toxic Orb, and you've got a powerhouse that can heal itself. Throw Drain Punch into the mix as well, and you've got a fantastic Pokemon. I'm not very much into the competitive battling side of Pokemon. It's mostly because I'm very lazy and don't feel like Eevee training my Pokemon very much. I know there are tons of programs you can use to do it easily, but I'd rather do it myself if I was going to do it. I've tried Eevee training before, and I decided to make the first Pokemon I trained to be my Ampharos. I heard about the video game championships that the Pokemon Company holds, and I decided the night before they were holding one nearby to gather a couple of random Pokemon from my PC that could compete and use them in my team. I didn't get selected by the raffle, so I didn't get to compete. But it didn't go to waste, as I ended up with a pretty boss Ampharos that I managed to kick many of my friends' asses with when we battled for fun. Ampharos is a Pokemon that I've used many times before. I've used it in Gold and Silver, Colosseum, XD, Pokemon Emerald, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black 2, White 2, the list goes on. And with each team it makes it on, I find it to be a really great ally, and I like how usable it is. Eevee is quite the diverse Pokemon, and is pretty popular among fans. Eevee is special because it can evolve into 8 different Pokemon. Now when I was thinking about my previous teams in the Pokemon games I've played, I realized that if I could get an Eevee somewhere in the game, I'd use it. I couldn't decide which evolution I liked the most, so I decided to pick the basic form. It's the core of the evolutionary family, and I'm sure some of you are going to say it's a cop-out, but hey, you can't get the evolution without the basic stage, unless you don't trade it of course, but that's beside the point. Not only is it a great Pokemon to choose for your team because of the many evolution options it has, it's also adorable. If I had to choose a Pokemon to have as a pet, Eevee would definitely be that choice. I mean, it probably won't be burning down my house, unless I evolve into Flareon. Why would I do that? My point is, Eevee is awesome, it's a great addition to any team, and I'm interested to see how its newest evolution, the Fairy-type Sylveon, works in Pokemon X and Y. Lucario is one badass Pokemon. He was the star of the 8th Pokemon movie, which was one of my favorite Pokemon movies. He made it into Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which is one of my favorite games, and he was a powerful addition to many of my Pokemon teams, especially in Pokemon Black 2, where his pre-evolution Riolu is available very early on in the game. Lucario has a pretty unique typing of Fighting and Steel, making him resistant to both Psychic and Flying type attacks, a weakness most Fighting type Pokemon have. However, this Steel typing comes with a bit of a price. He can be pretty susceptible to earthquakes. However, the pros of using Lucario do weigh out the cons in my opinion. He's got a very cool design based off Anubis, an Egyptian god that has connections to the spirits of humans. That's probably why Lucario's ability to manipulate aura is a center point to his design. He's got a good balance of physical and special attack stats, making him good for hitting foes with his fists and moves like Aura Sphere. Lucario earns the number 5 spot on this list. I learned to read with Pokemon Blue. It was the game that made me like video games. I used to sit down with my family members from time to time and play the game. I didn't know how to save, and I never got past the cranky old man in Viridian City. However, each time I started up the game, I ended up picking Squirtle, until the day I got a strategy guide from a garage sale. I finally started my legitimate playthrough, and I chose Charmander. My point is, I thought Squirtle was an awesome Pokemon. One person that I'd sit down and play the game with was my mom. She was always a big supporter of my hobby of playing the games, and I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years back. Whenever I use a Squirtle or see a Squirtle, I think of the fun times I had with her. I know it's not really a reason that backs up why Squirtle is a usable Pokemon, because really, you should evolve it to see the evolutionary line's full potential, but sometimes a Pokemon doesn't need to be an all-star to be appreciated. In Generation 1, a majority of players used one type of Pokemon on their team, that being the Psychic type. One of their weaknesses was Bug. However, the Bug type didn't exactly have their powerful hitter that everyone was looking for. Sure, Scyther and Pinsir were pretty cool, but none match up to the awesomeness that we were introduced to in Generation 2, Heracross. Heracross has a sleek blue design that I really like. It's also pretty natural looking, and its basis being the rhinoceros beetle. These things actually do fight each other, sort of like Pokemon battles in real life, which I'm sure helped influence Tajiri's inspiration for the Pokemon games. He was an avid bug collector after all. Heracross has a very high attack stat, making it a really good Pokemon for making big hits on your opponent. I used one in Soul Silver recently, and was easily the star of my team. Give this thing Mega Horn, and it will carry you to victory. Ash Ketchum has been around for a very long time. He hasn't caught nearly as many Pokemon as he should have, but the ones he has caught have been pretty memorable. In the Best Wishes anime, Ash caught an Oshawott, and it's stolen the show in many situations. Oshawott is hilarious in the anime. It has lots of personality and it brings a lot of life to the show. It's one of the reasons why I actually really love the character. Not only does it have a lot of attitude, but it's pretty frickin' adorable too. I loved using it as my starter in almost every Gen 5 playthrough I do, and its evolutions are really cool as well. Seriously, this thing evolves into a samurai otter. That's really freaking cool. Oshawott easily takes the number 2 spot on my list. A lot of you probably saw this coming, since I talk about Blaziken a lot. I think Blaziken is a great Pokemon. He has a really cool design. Not only that, but if you can get one with the Speed Boost ability, this thing will destroy everything in its path. Literally, it's unstoppable. Plus, he can use one of my favorite attacks, Blaze Kick. He was the original firefighting type. Suck it, Emboar. Blaziken's legs are said to be so powerful that he can jump a 30-story building. That's insane! Blaziken was also, at one point in its development cycle thing, bonded with Latias. Again, pretty insane stuff. Back when I beat Ruby version, I trained my Blaziken up to level 100. It was at least one of the first, maybe even the first Pokemon I even raised to level 100, and it was an impressive feat for me back then. This Blaziken has traveled to tons of different regions through trading, migrating, Poketransferring, and I hope to continue his legacy with Pokemon X and Y. That is, if we can actually transfer Pokemon from Gen 5 to those games. I happily give Blaziken the honor of being my favorite Pokemon. Not the best, but my favorite. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Be sure to check out my list of my top 10 least favorite Pokemon, if that piques your interest, I don't know. The next few weeks are going to be a little crazy in terms of how I can get videos done, so if you want to keep updated on stuff, follow me on Twitter, link will be down below. And that's pretty much it for today, so thank you guys for watching this video. I appreciate it so much, and we'll see you guys next time with more videos.